Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thanks very much for joining me today. We're going to have some fun doing some really simple food, but very popular as well. We're making pulled pork today. And pulled pork is something that's pretty delicious, but also to a lot of people is very personal. But I'm going to just sort of break it down and make it simple. We're working with a piece of pork shoulder, and if you look over here, just the front right there, pork shoulder. For this type of cooking process, which is slow and long for quite a few hours, to break down all the muscle tissue and the fat within the animal, we need something that has a considerable amount of fat as well as sinew, just so it can continue to slowly cook this meat and break down all that really strong muscle tissue into a very tender piece of deliciousness. It's one of my favorite things to make. Even though it takes hours, it's something that I do quite often. And it's very easy because once you start it, you can just walk away and forget about it. So with this piece of meat here, I am going to just basically get it ready. We're going to put it in the crock pot. But before that, we can talk about certain things you might want to put on your pork before you start. So I've made a basic dry rub, and I don't necessarily have a recipe for dry rub because that's something everybody sort of likes to use. Their own sort of spice mixtures or the stuff you buy in the stores are just as fine as well. So we won't get into spice mixtures because that can be another whole topic altogether. And hold on for a second. Excuse me. All right, that's better. All right. Putting a dry rub on the pork roast is going to infuse a lot more flavor. And another thing you can do as well is brine your pork. And by doing that, what you're going to do is you're going to cure it for a little bit of time in a salted, sugared mixture of water for a day, up to a day, maybe up to 3 days, depending on how much salt content is in that liquid. I have a recipe for brine. I'll put it up. This has been brining for 2 days. I've pulled it out of the brine, and I've just sort of let it get air dried for a couple hours, just so it gets a little tacky, and that lets the rub I'm going to put on it stick to it a little bit better. And then I've got an onion here. I'm just going to put an onion at the bottom of the crock pot because doing that, the meat is not directly making contact with the bottom of the crock pot, and it's not going to sort of create this sort of overcooked crust or this different sort of texture with the meat. So the pork is going to sit right on the onion, and it's going to sort of create a bed for us. So I'm just putting some onions into the bottom of the crock pot, just like that. And I've got a dry mix here. Just mix it up. All right, and we're just going to put that over the top. And I want to be generous. I want to be very generous. Get that really on there. And like I said, it's been uncovered out of the liquid for a good while, and it just creates that outside tacky texture that all this dry rub is sticking to. And I think I'm getting a little teary because this powder is just sort of making me a little emotional. All right. All right. Dust that off. Into your crock pot. Put the lid on. And I can't reach because of my big belly, but let's go. Turn that on to low, just like that. And that's it. Walk away for 10 to 12 hours. I made a bit of a mess, but I'll clean that up. Let's walk away and look at that back in about 10 to 12 hours. All right? See you later. All right, when you're preparing what we're going to do is a pulled pork sandwich, you're going to want other things that go along with that sandwich that go along with the meat. Things that sort of complement the flavors. Pork is sweet, and we put sort of a spicy, slightly sweet rub on there. And you want something to combat that to a point, as well as enhance the flavor of the meat as well. So we're going to do a coleslaw, and we're going to do pickled onions, okay? Pickled onions for sure. I definitely have to have pickled onions with pulled pork. Very simple. I got a quarter of a head of cabbage. I got half a red onion, and I've got some carrot. With coleslaw, obviously, cabbage is a very rough, hard vegetable that you need to sort of make palatable to a point. Oh, here, let me move this out of the way, sorry. I mean, basically what I mean is chewable, so it doesn't feel like it's very unpleasant or you feel like you're chewing on hay. So by doing that, we're going to have to soften the cabbage a little bit. And by softening it, we're going to use a little bit of sugar. And we're going to use some vinegar. Now, I prefer using a type of rice wine vinegar. That's just what I prefer. And if you don't have the ability to have rice wine vinegar, then you can just use your regular white vinegar. I wouldn't necessarily recommend using wine vinegar. It's just got too much of a flavor profile that goes against the flavor of coleslaw. But white vinegar, rice vinegar, maybe red wine vinegar. Let's add about a tablespoon of sugar, which is, yeah, there we go. That's a tablespoon. Let's call it a tablespoon. And I would say about a quarter of a cup of vinegar. I'm using seasoned rice wine vinegar because I like that flavor. But if you don't have that, you can just use regular white vinegar as well. It doesn't matter. Just give it a bit of a mix. And you'll want this to sit for about half an hour. What's going to happen is the sugar and the vinegar is going to pull some of the water out of the cabbage and make it a little more soft and tender. That being said, you're going to want to strain off some of that excess liquid because by the time you want to add a little bit of mayonnaise to that, you might have a runny coleslaw. So what I have here is a coleslaw that has already been done. It's already slightly wilted, and you can see it's not so stiff like this cabbage is. And I'll see if there's any excess liquid. Just like that. So let's go ahead, put that into another bowl. All right, and then from here, we can get this out of the way now. We'll add about, I want to say about a third of a cup of mayonnaise. We don't want it overly mayonnaise-y. And then from there, we're going to make some pickled onion. Now, when it comes to making pickled onions, the thinner you can get the onions, the better, because you don't want really chewy, chunky pieces of onion that sort of overpower the flavor of the dish, and it just creates an unpleasant mouthfeel. So we're going to julienne, or we're going to thinly slice some red onions, thin as we can. Now I can never get this end bit, right? So, well, whatever, it can stay there. All right, just like that. Into a bowl. Excuse me for a sec. I'm feeling a little dry. All right. And again, like the coleslaw and like wilting down the cabbage, we need to do the same thing from the onions. We need to make the onions soft and tender as well. So we're going to, again, use some sugar. And for about half an onion, I'm going to use about a tablespoon of sugar. And I'm going to use, again, a little bit of vinegar. So sweet and sour together. The sugar is going to pull the water out of the onion. And the vinegar is going to pickle it slightly so I get this salty, or pardon me, I'll get the sweet and briny, vinegary flavor. Is it recording? All right, sweet. By the way, this is for Evan, who's doing all my filming. Thanks, dude. All right, magically, 12 hours later, right? Here it is. It's a thing of beauty. I'm pretty emotional about it right now. But the one thing you notice is I don't have a dry rub on this because the real one I did prepare is actually still cooking away, and it does have the dry rub on it. I'm going to use this for something else, but for demonstrational purposes, I wanted to show you what it was like. But what we have here is the piece of cooked meat. I'm going to remove this fat cap. And it's absolutely effortless. Absolutely effortless. I'm going to pull a nice piece of meat. Oh my God. Now watch this. Like, shut the hell up, right? Like, come on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into a pot, break this up a little bit. I don't want to overly work this meat. It's very soft as it is. I just want to, it's very hard for me to refrain from filling my face right now in front of you and eat all that. But what we're going to do is we're going to add some barbecue sauce to that, a little bit of barbecue sauce, just to flavor it up a little bit. So it's just barely starting to sizzle away, so the pan is at the temperature I want it to cook the sauce. I'm not trying to cook the meat anymore. I've saved some of the braising liquid, or the liquid that came back from when I actually cooked the pork, and I'm going to add some of that back to the pan, just so that it's a little more liquidy with the barbecue sauce. If I just add barbecue sauce, there's too much sugars, there's too many other things in there that could sort of cook down and even potentially burn. So I want to thin it out a little bit and then reduce it so it actually gets to the consistency it was originally. So you see how thick this is. That's kind of the thickness I want when it's done, but in the meat. So in order to achieve that, I have to add it with some other liquid. Now you could use chicken stock, you can use water, but I like to save the liquid from when I'm cooking the pork, because that's also the flavor that comes along with that as well. And not to sound cheesy, but you got to get on board of the flavor train. So I don't have a lot of barbecue sauce. I'm sort of playing by ear how much I want, a little bit at a time. And I'm just cooking it down. It's not enough, so I'm going to add a little bit more. Let's try that. And I'm just going to sort of mix it up. I'm barely touching it. I'm not trying to overwork the meat. As you see, the more I work the meat, the more it's breaking down. That's why I didn't do any of that breaking it down before I put it in the pot. All right, I think we're at where I'd like it to be. And I'm just sort of going to cook it so it's a little less liquidy, and that the barbecue sauce has a chance to sort of thicken up a little again. Let those sugars sort of cook down and reduce so it becomes a little more essentially tighter. All right, so that's going to do its thing. Then we're going to take it from here and we're going to go over to the counter and we're going to build our sandwich, okay? Molly just woke up. Molly. What? Come here. Come here. Come here. Hi. Hi. What am I doing? What am I doing? Am I making good food? Yeah, are you hungry? Yeah. All right, let me wash my hands. I just touched the puppy. Okay. We are building a pulled pork sandwich. Oh, and hi, Diesel. I have a little one down here as well. Little Diesel, he's a French bulldog as well. So, okay, let's make a sandwich. Any bread, bun, whatever, French bread, baguette, it's completely up to you. If you don't have access to all these things, you can just use sandwich bread. The point is to get it between two pieces of bread, for goodness sakes, okay? That's why it's called a sandwich. I'm using, I like Portuguese style rolls. Some people use Kaisers, but I do like Portuguese rolls. This doesn't require any type of mayonnaise or anything like that, or any extra sauces. The meat has a nice sauce. The coleslaw has a dressing as well, and the pickled onions are quite damp. So you don't want to oversauce your sandwich. So for this type of a sandwich, I'd say about 6 ounces of meat would be enough. Now, of course, if I was eating this without you in front of the camera, I'd put a lot more, because I'd be eating this over the sink alone with nobody watching. So a good amount of meat, and just enough coleslaw to complement the meat, to not necessarily overpower. And then some delicious pickled sweet red onions, just like that. Don't be afraid of this sandwich. Don't be intimidated by its size. I'm not afraid of a challenge. We're just going to go like that. And you can see that that's pretty awesome. And it's going to be delicious, and I know you'll like it. The good thing is, if it didn't quite turn out, you can eat it and then make it again and keep continuing that process until you're happy with it. So let's cut this in half and have a look at the inside of the sandwich. And I'm going to take a bite of this. Okay. Gorgeous, right? All right, let's bite.
Nice.
So good.
Nice.
So good.
Nice.
All right. That's it. I want to eat the rest of my sandwich, so I need you guys to leave me alone. But I want to thank you for joining me. I thank you for watching. I hope you learned something, but I hope you enjoyed yourself at the same time. Remember, cooking isn't difficult, even if it seems to be. We're not doing anything like reinventing the wheel. We're not saving lives here. We're just cooking. And that's what this channel is all about. So just keep that in mind. Don't let cooking stress you out or anything like that. Just have fun. Thanks for joining me today. Have a great afternoon. Cheers.